Howdy, folks. How we doing? So yeah, I guess I should just kind of preface this by saying I submitted this as a joke because I thought it was funny, and then they told me I had to talk, so I had to make a presentation for it. So I think it came out all right. You let me know after the talk. My name is Keith Sansone. I work with Torch and Crown, and I've been with them since they launched. We're going to be covering just basically all aspects of just whatever sort of software technology that can be relevant to this industry. And frankly, I'm just trying to beat it into you to actually use it because it's super useful. But to really get started, who am I and why should you care what I have to say? So with Torch and Crown, we were using Ecos, and that might kind of trigger a few of you who have used it. And running the sales and distribution efforts, we are self-distributed. Trying to route and manage all that sales aspect was like getting punched in the face. It was nearly impossible. And so to supplement the software that we were using, I just kind of started off with Excel sheets, handling routing, handling what we needed to do for deliveries through that process. And slowly I started uncovering new technologies, started using some project management software. And long story short, I ended up building the CRM that we use, and it has entirely replaced Ecos in our system. And it's since expanded over the production side as well. And actually, we spun it off to a separate business, but that's a separate conversation. But I got the bug in essentially being a hardworking, lazy person to try to automate and just get simple tasks that were just taking up too much time off of my plate. And through some of the technology that we're going to explore, and I have like screenshots of the actual system that we use at Torch and Crown to kind of dig into it, walk through how you can explore using these yourselves, and frankly try to dig into how you can take better advantage of the software you may or may not be using. So again, what I'm not here to do is I'm not here to tell you what software is best. I have strong opinions on that, but that's not what this talk's about. I'm not here to teach you how to use the software you're using. Like, I'll encourage you to learn it. There's a whole slide about that. But I'm not here to teach you how to program or do formulas in Excel. What I am here to do is just explore these technologies, explore different software, and really dig into why it's worth the effort. So to get started, the simple stuff, brewery management software. So show of hands, who uses brewery management software? Roughly half? The folks who do, why do you use it? Someone. Anyone.
Organization.
Don't have time to be brewing and sitting on the computer all day.
Okay, great. Anyone else?
Cost control.
Cost control, just general statistics and data management. Has anyone who signed up for this ever looked into other software or capabilities outside of just the ones targeted at breweries? So like the Ecos is the Ollie, they're shoving all the branding down your throat. Like the software that's built for breweries themselves.
I use TTD Tamer.
I'm more like the ERPs, like the actual production based, and as well as the CRM, like the sales size, invoicing, that sort of aspect. The generic like Ecoses of the world. Yeah. And that's basically it. It's a turnkey solution, and it's easy to use. Those who didn't raise their hand, why don't you use it? I'll pick on you, Kyle.
Well, we were using Ecos, and yeah, similar problem. It was cumbersome for what we were doing. We were running two breweries at the time.
Yeah.
And now we're doing one. And for us, we're brewing 400 or 500 barrels a year.
No.
We manage that without the expense.
Yeah, and they make you buy a second instance to manage your two locations, because that makes fucking perfect sense. Oh, there you go. Even better. Keith, what about you?
I think from what I've
Yep.
You know, things are always changing, you need to make on-the-fly adjustments or, you know, a change to inventory, and then that screws up 10 different things down the pipeline. So that was kind of a big barrier, as well as, you know, it's only as good as person or people who are inputting
Yep.
information, and that relies on having those people to do it.
Yeah. I mean, you hit one of my main points right on the head. They're a one-size-fits-all solution, and one size does not fit all. Like, it's very rigid. If you need to do something specific or change this, you submit your ticket, and then 8 months later, they tell you that you can't do anything with it. And for what it's worth, it gets the job done. And this isn't me trying to just shit on brewery management software, though it might sound like it. It's a very useful tool, but it's not for everyone, and it makes sense to kind of dig into different ways that you can actually manage your business. But there's other options, and as long as you're using the technology properly that you do instead of a pre-built software, that's how you gotta get the most of what you're trying to do. So like, one thing to point out is even if you do use these softwares, it doesn't need to be your only software. It shouldn't be. There's so much going on in these businesses, whether you're managing the tap room, managing events coming in, and just general, a lot of sales stuff is really limited in these softwares. It shouldn't be your only software. So to kind of jump into the simple stuff, good old spreadsheets. Most people I talk to who don't use any software, just have 8,000 Google Sheets that are kind of linked and poorly labeled and like, hope for the best. If you're using spreadsheets, learn to use them. And let me just drive this home. Learn to use them. There are so many free resources that teach you how to use Excel. Fucking do it. Because there's so much, you can learn 4 formulas and it will completely transform the way you do your spreadsheets. If you learn how to do if statements, if you learn how to do index and use index with the match formula, and then maybe some other, like 1 or 2 others, the world is your oyster with these sheets. But most people do not take the time to learn how to do it. You don't have to be a pro. You don't have to go like finance bro level of fucking Excel talent. But learning to actually use this software properly will do a lot of good for you. And I still use a ton of spreadsheets, and they are built to supplement the other software that we use. So I already drove that home. I'm gonna show you some like export templates and some other like data compilation sheets that I use at Torch and Crown to manage our e-commerce business. And just to give you an idea of something that's relatively simple, you put in the work in advance, and it basically allows you to pull data from all these different sources and actually get some meaningful data summaries out of it without necessarily a lot more work that goes into it. So this is, I don't want you guys stealing all of our secrets, so I redacted some of the data here. But this is a sheet. You can see a bunch of the tabs on the bottom that we use to run reports on our e-commerce. So you'll see a few different things at the bottom, and these tables, these tabs on the bottom are just meant to, you copy and paste directly from the different software we use. We use Shopify. We use a separate inventory management system. We use UPS. We use a service called ShipStation. We use a service called WeShip to manage all our shipping needs. All of them have completely different formats, and it's a nightmare to try to figure out every which way to actually analyze this data and put it all in one place. So spending some time building this out, each tab is for each individual report. And all you gotta do is paste the data directly from that software into here. I have all of our SKU data. Everything's the same because, again, not stealing our secrets. It pulls costs, moving average costs, just retail pricing, everything, and that just links up and is our live inventory. I post the straight report from all of our UPS shipping, and then automatically it just spits this out. Now, is it the sexiest sheet I've ever made? No. but it gets the numbers across. I also totally inflated this to make it look like we're selling a lot more beer than we are. But you didn't hear that. We're selling $83,000 worth of beer online a day. But my point here is, like, this took a little while to build, but there's maybe those 4 formulas that I mentioned earlier in it, and taking the time to learn how to make these things talk. Now I just get an accurate weekly report of our e-commerce business using a bunch of random software that doesn't really talk to each other, and we don't have a good way of actually, like, there's no dashboard for this because all the software is all over the place. So, like, this is a very long-winded way of saying to fucking learn how to use Excel if you're using it in Google Sheets. It's not hard to do. I took a free LinkedIn class. It took me a few hours 1 week, and I've been using it ever since. And frankly, that's the thing that gave me the bug to, like, wow, I've saved a lot of time even with this silly little document here. And I started exploring other software, and that's what led us to project management software. So the software we ended up building for Torch and Crown that manages it now is built on the back of a project management software. So I gave a few examples here. There's a lot of them very similar. The one we use is called Airtable. It's a sort of project management database building tool. You could describe it as fancy Excel on steroids. It's very easy to use, and if you spend the time to figure it out, it can do a lot of good for you. There's a free version of it. I encourage everyone to look into it. Like, I'm not here to sell Airtable, it just happens to be the one that we use. All of these do a great job, and depending on your level of use, the most expensive you can get is like $40 a month for Airtable. It's not that bad, and it can do a ton of work for you. There's a huge range of use. There's built-in integrations, which is great, which a lot of these brewery management software don't have, and it's not like Google Sheets has any sort of integrations itself. Yes, my good man?
When you're saying it's fancy and on steroids, like how is that, what makes it that over like Google itself?
So Google itself is just bare bones. You just have your cells in there, and you can just type in some formulas. If you don't know how to do the formulas, it's not like it's talking you through it. You just kind of have to figure it out. The software like Airtable, and I have some slides that kind of screenshots of the different tables and how they're kind of built. They have all different types of fields, and this is pretty much how all of these softwares work, that serve specific purposes. Like there's formula fields, there's like single select, there's, let me dig into it on the slide, so, because I just can rattle off all these random ones that have, without any context, mean nothing. They're cost effective. Brewery software is expensive. And a lot of them are very similar to your generic like CRM. These are project management software, but everyone knows Salesforce. That's just a generic CRM, customer relationship management software. Like that's built for not brewing. And frankly, if we didn't have to actually monitor the batches that we brew, we'd probably just use all those software anywhere. None of them are built for that specific purpose, which is kind of why we're in the situation here. But the thing is, it can supplement. I put replace because we ended up replacing it with it. That was over the course of years. The process of actually doing that was pretty drawn out because I built it. Here, let me, this is a look at our sales base. So we set this up because, again, as I mentioned earlier, trying to route and manage my deliveries and self-distribution. How many people self-distribute their beer? Had a feeling, and it's a process. It's not fun. So I essentially started using just a Google Sheet because I couldn't do it in Ecos, and then eventually I got turned on to this software and slowly added more and more and more to what we used, and now this is what our routing dashboard looks like right now. I just took a screenshot yesterday of us putting together the route. And what this actually does is it automates a suggested route for you, and it puts it in there, and then you can adjust from there. But my drivers on the road have access to this, and they can see what the next stop is, what the window is. They can click that button there. They can see the map where they need to go, there's a Google Maps link. They can just plug it right into their GPS. And they actually close out deliveries in this system, start to finish. And if I need to adjust a route on the go, I can just swap it in here, and it swaps live for them while they're out on the road. To speak to some of those, the different fields here, like you have date fields. Like you can enter a date in an Excel field. That's fine, but these ones are specifically designed as a date field, so you can actually track. Here, I'll go back to that one.
What program is this, Keith?
This is called Airtable. So this is our production base that once we got the sales one up and running, I just kind of had the bug and like, let's start fucking with production here. And frankly, I got tired of, packaging sheets that were printed out and then written on, submitted in, and then there were 4s mistaken for 9s and everything was inaccurate. This is our head brewer right here, so I'm not trying to shit on him.
First time I've heard this.
Not shitting on him, just his team. And like the date field, like Will asked me to get rid of it, but like days in tank, it's something that tracks because of that. It's not as simple a formula as you're just randomly putting dates into an Excel spreadsheet, but we're able to track the status of beers, the date, the projected packaging date, what tank it's going in. All of those are linked fields. That's what the little square ones are. So we can look at what is the average loss every time we transfer from a fermenter to one of our bright tanks, like a specific bright tank. All of that is accessible data just because it's in this essentially fancy Excel software, and we can do whatever we want with this. Again, took a while to set this up because it wasn't an out-of-box solution, but we've gotten to the point where we can continuously keep building on it and changing it to our specific needs, which is why we've left those software in the past. And we'll just look at this one real quick. This is our what our tap room uses. I didn't want you seeing how much money we make at the tap room. So those are those weird little white lines. But this is another simple, this is actually a much simpler base than the sales one because it's just how the how our hospitality team manages some of their data. So they just submit a nightly report, and there's all the data on the covers, revenue, across the board. And they use it, some of those other tabs or other tables with data in it, they use it to plan events, to track their meetings, to just do general task management. It's even how we use it, I don't know if you can see it up there, it might be on the side, but any repairs and maintenance is just all tracked in the system, things they need to do around the brewery. So my point, really digging this deep into it, is like, yes, this is a few years worth of effort going into this, but we're so much better off now because we spent the time learning to use it, and we got some buy-in from not just me, from certain members of the team who actually appreciated data. Like that, as nerdy as it sounds, data's fucking great, and you can make a lot of smart decisions by accurately tracking data, and then most importantly, using it. All this software, all the brewery management software, whatever you use, it's gonna have a ton of data that you can use, and most people just don't touch it. Cool, that was my sales for the month. What am I gonna do with that data? A lot of people stop there. And so if you take anything away from this talk besides the silly Harry Potter name, which I'm gonna explain that at some point, it is use the software that you're using. Actually learn to use it. So we'll jump to the next one here. Chat apps like Workplace Instant Messaging. I'm sure a lot of people do use these software, but I really just feel the need to drive it home. Like if you don't use Slack or even Discord or similar software, do it. It is so helpful to have. I list all the generic reasons that if you log on to slack.com, they'll pitch you all this stuff. And I'll show you how our system is set up to get an idea of how we work through these things. But the biggest benefit of these software is promoting work-life balance. I say this as a salesperson doing beer sales for 10 years. You're never off. It's fucking exhausting. And so I'm always expecting the call from an account who said their keg is foaming when they just didn't fucking turn the gas on, or the temperature's too hot, or whatever it is, and I have to take that call. If I'm also getting getting messages from my team, like at all hours of the day, it can be a little frustrating. And if you don't use a software like this, if your only methods of communication is, frankly, text and calls, there's no off switch. I mean, you can probably figure out how to like filter and block people during certain hours, but that's completely unrealistic. This software, if you just keep everything in there, you can turn off at 7 o'clock or 8 o'clock or 5 o'clock, whenever, I don't know. You can actually set your boundaries much more easily, and it's what I've promoted very heavily with my sales team, just having been through the works and seeing how difficult it is every time my phone buzzes when I'm at home, like fucking my heart skips a beat because I think I have to deal with some angry account with some dumb problem that they caused themselves. This is just a way to organize things and set those boundaries, which I have seen a massive, massive work-life balance and just general like mental like well-being improvement by doing this. So let's look at how we set up our Slack just to get an idea. How many people use Slack or apps? About half-ish, maybe? So the rest of you don't really use any sort of software like this for the team? You just kind of text each other? All right, well, I expect a lot new accounts on Slack. You can use there's a free Slack account. There is a business one that I think is pretty useful. It allows you to connect with other Slack users. So I'm actually connected with some of our distributors that we use outside of the city, as well as just some of the e-com partners that we work with, which is nice. But Discord has actually stepped onto the game as a pretty viable business solution as well. And that you can connect with whoever. You can create channels. These are all channels. Like I know anything related to, like we use FinTech. Anything related to that goes in this channel. It's organized. You can go look. If you have any fucking question about FinTech, it's in that channel. And if you don't post it in that channel, you get yelled at to post it in that channel. So we know exactly where to look if there's a question regarding that. Our accounting team has access to this just as much as the sales team, and it's a great way to consolidate and organize what we're talking about specific topics. I mean, it doesn't all have to be professional. We have a whole channel that's dedicated to our bowling team. Like, you can organize however you want, but this is a very useful way to make sure the topics you talk about are organized and like traceable. If you need to go back and figure something out, who said what or what was the update that we gave on this, you just look in a specific channel and the search function, you can just search and it searches all the channels. Again, I don't work for Slack. I'm not trying to sell you anything, especially since it's free, so I wouldn't earn anything regardless. But this software is like, it's so helpful, and I genuinely cannot stress enough how nice the work-life balance that you can promote by using a software like this is. And this one is a little nifty notification. Every time a delivery is made, you get a little notification. So there is a kind of a trend. A lot of these things I built were just because I got tired of people asking me questions that they could just look up themselves. So this is just like, hey, where's the truck? What's going on? Every time they make a stop, it gets logged so they can see exactly where the delivery vehicles are. They know what the status is. So when that account is, where's my beer? They can look it up and see, okay, you're the next stop. You got 2 stops left, whatever it is. Directly, yeah. Yep. And this one, actually, on the next slide, there's actually this specific automation itself that I'm going to get into. It's good timing because automations. Absolute lifesaver. I have streamlined so many of the dumb tasks I need to do on a daily or weekly basis and just replace them with automations. Anyone who uses keg logistics, I got a slide that will probably make you pretty excited. And we'll get to that though. But automations are an absolute lifesaver because you can all think to yourselves on a day-to-day basis, like what simple task that's just easy to do but time consuming because it's manual, that if you can get that off of your list, how much nicer that would feel. These are a few programs. I'm going to dig into Zapier because that's the one we use the most. But all of them are solid. I actually done a lot of, that stands for if this then that. They're pretty useful. These programs connect to everything. There doesn't have to be native integrations for these things to work. They connect software that might not be natively integrated together, right up to each other. You can build workflows and just, as I said, take mindless tasks off your plate. Here's just like for Zapier itself, all the software that it directly connects with. And any software in here, you can just connect right to each other. So using Airtable, using our system, we can schedule and coordinate posts to Reddit automatically. So we could post to Reddit every single day at 10 a.m. if we wanted to. I don't know why we would, but you could. But we built our QuickBooks integration for the CRM that we use. So all of our invoicing is directly connected through QuickBooks. Through Shopify, all of our e-com and orders that come to the tap room that go through our Shopify site directly get fed into the system, and then that connects it to the last mile delivery services that we use. All of this is just done automatically, and it saves a lot of trouble. Let's look at some of the ones we got. This is a look at how Zapier works. It seems kind of silly looking, but like this is just basically kind of like a whiteboard, and some of these automations you can build are like, it's like a decision tree, essentially. You can, if this happens, you go down this tree, and this is all the things that trigger and whatever you want to do, and if this happens, you go this way. This is a really simple one, and that's that distribution notification. When a record is marked as delivered, which is what that first one is, you can open that up and dig deeper into what actually happens in the automation. When a delivery happens, that message gets sent to Slack. It actually sends multiple. Accounting gets a notification to make sure it's done, and they know how many empties were picked up so they can log credits properly. The team gets a notification to make sure that they know the delivery's done. And then the account gets an email saying, hey, you're awesome. Your beer just got delivered. It's got a fucking GIF with, what's his face? The dude rolling in the car that gets sent. It's silly, but it's something special that accounts like, okay, my beer was delivered, because a lot of the people placing the orders are typically not there all the time, and they know it gets done. They don't have to call and check. And this is simple in theory, but it's something that is genuinely been very helpful for internally keeping track of what we're doing. But a little bell and whistle to give to accounts there. Another one, which I mentioned earlier, how many people use keg logistics? Anyone? Only, wow. All right, well, how about that? So for those who don't know, you have to send a report every fucking Friday with every keg moved to Keg Logistic, with every invoice, every address, all of the details. I don't know, MicroStar, the other services might do that too, but I don't work with them. So this is just automated. I never have to think about it once. And these things aren't terribly difficult to build with different softwares and different automations. This is built directly through that Airtable software, but you would be able to do something similar with Zapier, for example. That connects with the whole Microsoft suite as well as the Google suite. So if you use Sheets or Excel, you could just paste that in here and they can automatically send. This has been my favorite one. I hated sending that fucking report so much. And then the last one, to finally explain this Harry Potter silliness. My salespeople were constantly putting in orders without, like, for accounts where they didn't log the, like, address or the delivery information. Like, what are we supposed to do? We don't know where to go. I'm not just going to Google the account name and try to figure out where we need to deliver it. So if anyone is a Harry Potter fan, this is a direct quote stolen from the Chamber of Secrets when Ron received a howler. So what this system does is it takes whoever fucked up, so I intentionally fucked up for this one, takes my name, fills it in, and then it puts the account name, and this just gets sent to the whole sales team. Candidly, it's a great way to call someone out in front of the entire team, but in not a shitty way, because you do that, it's not a good look. This never happens. This hasn't happened in 6 to 8 months. You do this enough, people stop, they don't want to get embarrassed with the stupid Harry Potter thing that comes along. There's a few silly ones like this that go in there, but they're correcting issues. They're solving problems. Like the amount of time it's spent to have to, okay, the order went in, we didn't catch it until we started routing. I don't have an address, how am I going to route this? I got to get in touch with the rep, but they're in the middle of a meeting and it just wastes time. Now you put it in, immediately get fucking called out about it. and you fix it, this link here goes right to the system so they can make the adjustments right on the go. And we all move along, the beer gets delivered, everyone's a happy camper. Last slide and the fun stuff. Everyone needs to embrace our AI overlords. It took me a while, and you know, as much as a nerd I am with this stuff, it took me a while to actually start fucking around with AI. Never go back. It's the best. So AI is like, the best way to use it is like your personal assistant. It's not here to replace what we do. Let's see. It's not here to replace what we do. It is meant to make things easier. So actually that dumb Harry Potter picture up front, that was just generated by AI if you couldn't figure that out already. I started using some of these for, just before I forget, if you have Windows, it's free. Like not like the base level one that you can just log on to ChatGPT with. Their full paid service, which is $20 a month, is free with Windows. It's called Copilot. It's the same thing. So I learned that recently. Now you all know, sorry Mac users, but anyone with Windows has free full AI, and there's like image generation. There's a lot of cool stuff. Before I actually put this proper slideshow together, if you want to call it that, I said, okay, AI, make me an outline for a sales presentation at a beer conference that talks about using technology. It spit out a full 10-topic outline, and then I put that into another slideshow generator, and it printed out like what probably could have been a passable presentation for what it's worth. So I didn't use that because it's like very clear, like what the fuck is this guy talking about? But it can get you most of the way there on a lot of aspects, and also like it's great for brainstorming. It's great of just getting things out there. One fun thing, one of our team members, I'm not even going to take credit for it, she came up with was she would just record herself running through a SOP with someone. She would take the transcript and then plop it into one of these generators and say, format this in an SOP. And it's awesome. And it just saves the hassle of just like, Will has been mind-numbingly putting together SOPs for the brewery for the past forever.
No comment.
Yeah, and it gets the job done pretty well. So I'm going to use an example of a service I just started using. It's a note-taking tool. So there's our friendly team. This is from our our OKR meeting that we do bi-weekly. So you'll see my friend here, my Fathom note-taker, just hops into the call and keeps an eye on things. You can see some details up in the top where you can highlight certain areas. It records a whole transcript of it. It'll actually tell you if you're monologuing too, so that makes sure you don't talk too much. But this is all neat and all. This is what happens immediately after the call. So again, I changed the text to lorem ipsum so you don't steal our secrets and find out everything we're working on. But it is, like, this is just done automatically. It does key takeaways. It does the whole note. I'm conducting a lot of interviews right now. You can change there's different ways it organizes it. You can change it to an interview, and it basically breaks down the candidate's background, salary expectations, key questions they asked, what you talked about, and it's just done automatically. I am incapable of taking notes and talking at the same time. My life is so much different right now. Use this stuff. Like, it's so helpful. And there's so many other uses for AI. I like this Fathom one because it's free, and I like free things. There's other services that aren't free, but this has been pretty great so far. But this is just pointing out, like, I was very hesitant with AI initially, because especially, like, I don't know how many of you know our good friend Chris O'Leary, Mr. Brew York, but when he posted the article of the AI-generated brewery announcing their opening lineup, that terrified me. And it was like, this is just, made me think it was stupid, made me think it was just kind of a joke. So I'm not shitting on Chris, I love Chris. I didn't really dig into it to see what an actual real world use was until I really started messing around with this. And then I started messing around to get that image for the title slide. And I'm like, this is actually pretty neat, let's figure it out. And now I don't think I could ever go back to living without it, especially for this note-taking tool. So all that being said, my closing thoughts are, I can just sum these up all in one. Whatever software you use, there's a lot of useful ones out there. I would spend some time looking into it. Whatever you use, learn how to use it and put in that time and effort to take advantage of the software you might be paying for, because there's a lot of good stuff that's under the hood, and if you're not actually using it, you're not gonna get your money's worth, and you're not gonna get all the beneficial stuff that will save you time and money and just make your life easier. Thank you. Thank you. Questions? Thoughts, questions, concerns?
The Zapier, the things that could link to each other, so it was like Square to Airtable, so we could pull a daily report by item, and it would go in and it would like populate into Airtable with like
Yep.
more data and stuff.
Yep.
And then that would relate to, like, if we had built out our, whatever, our brand in Airtable previously,
Mhm.
they could like then talk back and like talk about like.
Yep, all of them talked, like, all those things I listed, and I think there's 8,000 linked apps and softwares that it connects with. I just picked a bunch of random, I thought, useful ones. You could do whatever with them. It fully connects with the companies, the software companies themselves build the apps that connect with Zapier. So they set it up so that it has full access to the data, and any sort of field, any piece of information you can edit or update, they fully connect to each other. So a lot of these automations just like, all right, this happens in this thing, take these pieces of information, you pick whatever you need, and then put that into the other software.
Got a question on like the Fathom.
Yeah.
How often do you find that you have to either correct it or it takes things like out of context or something?
It's like, it's so little that it's really funny to see like, a lot of like industry-specific terms, or like, we all have ridiculously branded and named beers, so like just, it misreading those is a good laugh. You just go in and edit it. Like, I'm not sending this out externally and then I'm like, what the hell is he talking about? There's just some spelling errors, there's some things taken out of context, like occasionally it'll take like, we got a good laugh at this. It's definitely not perfect. The questions that I actually covered up were just the stupidest fucking questions that we were just like shooting the shit before we actually started talking about. There was something about birds or whatever. It's just like, it's not always perfect. But the fact is, just having I don't use the question stuff, it's just notes. And it really does a good job of taking the key points you need to run through. But worst case, you have the whole transcript and you can adjust these summaries however you want. If I don't think it does as good a job if I was like properly observing the call externally and taking notes on that, but I can't do that because I'm talking and I can't multitask. So this does a, frankly, better job than I could ever do with note taking, but it does a solid job with it. But you just, if you're gonna send it out, you correct some spelling things and like adjust like, it occasionally mistakes like, oh, I said this, or this is what the candidate's looking for when I said this is what I'm looking for, whatever it is, but it's pretty minimal. Who knows, maybe the paid ones are better, but this is free and it gets the job done for me.
So just quick question to that. Guild policy we started using, so you can Google Meet and you can set it up where it not only records a video, but it also does a transcript.
Mm-hmm.
So Fathom so I guess I'm asking, does it generate questions for you, or do you do that ahead of time and then?
Yeah, that's just like from listening in. It's like, here are the questions you asked. Here's what they asked. I mean, this is the same thing. You could not even use that if you use the Google software. Then you can take a transcript. I don't know if it summarizes it or it just has the transcript.
Yeah, just a transcript, but yeah, this is so much more helpful.
Yeah.
Because it does more than.
Yeah. You could also just take that transcript and then plop it into ChatGPT and say, hey, summarize this for me. And it's literally what this is doing.
Yeah.
And it does a pretty good job. You can legitimately just you click the transcript and you can see the back and forth. And you can go back, did I actually say this? If you need to ever like prove someone wrong. Well, yeah. Any other questions?
The presentation with Emily
going to be available for people to look at the website?
Maybe.
Did you send it, who did you send it to? Okay. I believe
I
it
mean, it
will be
wasn't
available.
finished until about 3 minutes before you all walked in.
We'll make sure,
anyway.
we'll make sure it's available through the CBC website.
Just make sure I black out any other secrets
Yeah,
I might not
other
have
than proprietary information.
covered. Well, yeah, if there's no other questions, thanks everyone for coming and taking a risk on the weird Harry Potter thing.
Is John giving you your rate?
Huh? I'll tell him you said that. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, Keith.